gust rolled across the riverfront boulevard, warm and fragrant, carrying motes that glimmered against the afternoon sun. Mara Ochoa, senior engineer of Iridia's Department of Transit, paused mid-stride as the dust settled on her clipboard, coating the plastic in a prismatic sheen. The grains were lighter than any sand, yet refused to blow away, instead crawling across the surface in tiny, coordinated spirals. She rubbed a thumb over them and felt nothing. No grit, no residue, only a soft vibration, as though her skin brushed the membrane of a distant speaker. Then the clipboard began to reshape. The hard industrial rectangle swelled at its corners, translucent petals unfurling, hinges dissolving into stems of fused silica. With a snap, the device bloomed into a frozen lily made of glass and steel, gorgeous and entirely useless. Around Mara, commuters stared, while benches bent into Baroque arabesques and trash cans curled themselves into bronze replicas of seashells. By the time the first screams echoed, the boulevard had become a gallery. 48 hours earlier, the same sparkling dust had launched from an exhibition in the Royal Botanical Conservatory. Floriculture, the invitation had read, an immersive synthesis of nanotech and pollination. Lysa Perrin, enfant terrible of generative art, had promised the next step beyond murals and holography. Self-replicating builderbots that gleaned structure the way bees glean nectar, reassembling matter as they traveled. Attendees inhaled champagne, exhaled wonder, and filmed slow-motion videos of statues budding from driftwood. The release valve was scheduled to vent a single plume into the greenhouse, safely enclosed. Yet social media demanded spectacle. At the last minute, Lysa uncapped the ceiling, letting her creation mingle with real spring air. The city met the pollen halfway, and curiosity became contagion. At first, Iridia treated the phenomenon like an eccentric PR stunt. Street signs metamorphosed into stained glass, yet retained their letters. Traffic cones twisted into coral spirals, but kept their neon hue, so vehicles continued to flow. Journalists snapped pictures of lampposts tessellated into crystal lattices that refracted evening light into rainbows. The mayor's office commissioned drones to record a promotional montage, hunting hashtags before regulations. When the first municipal drone itself unfolded into a chrome swallow mid-flight and perched on the Civic Center dome to sing electric trills, even skeptics applauded. Beauty, everyone agreed, had never felt so alive, but beneath ornament, failure simmered. Glass stoplights melted into chandeliers whose pendants glowed all colors at once, confusing motorists. Asphalt ripple sculpted into dunes where wheels stuck and spun. Hospital generators sprouted filigreed vents, airflow clogged, and surgical wards flickered dark. By dawn of the third day, power grids citywide crashed under the weight of their own rewoven copper, lines now braided into vast, dreaming dream catchers that no longer conducted. Mara, sleepless in the emergency operations center, watched red indicators cascade across her monitors until those, too, were subsumed. Screens sprouted fractal frost and froze on the image of their own transfiguration. She convened with Jonas Reza, chief data scientist, in a sterilized lab whose Faraday cages still held the invaders at bay. They captured a speck of dust in vacuum tweezers and magnified it 10,000 times. Each mote was a polyhedral capsule of programmable matter, no larger than a pollen grain, iridescent with quantum dots. Inside, molecular gears whirred, harvesting ambient radio and thermal noise for power. Jonas cracked the firmware through a tunneling microscope, pausing to steady his trembling breath when he uncovered the core directive. Beauty is the prime factor. Secondary subroutines parsed immediate environment by 9 aesthetic indices, symmetry, novelty, historical dialogue among them, and then issued nanolithographic commands to any material within reach. Nowhere in the code was there provision for structural integrity, human safety, or consent. The city felt the algorithm's devotion. Bridges slimmed into airy lace, elegant as doilies, until trucks thundered through the mesh and dropped into the bay. Sewer pipes curled like paper ribbons, spilling wastewater into subway tunnels, where stalactites of calcite blossomed from iron rails. The pollen targeted invariants with special zeal. Things designed to last were seeds awaiting bloom. Factories that forged utilitarian bolts became cathedrals of mirrored spirals. The bolts themselves fluttered away like metallic butterflies. Aridia, long praised for its pragmatism, was being rewritten into a poem too dense to live inside. Command centers shifted to underground bunkers, whose lead linings the bots found unpalatable. There, Mara orchestrated triage. Firefighters sprayed foam to disperse clusters, only to watch hoses mutate into anacondas of blown glass. Police erected plastic barriers, but the pollen infiltrated through microscopic pores and sculpted riot shields into tableau of mythic battle. Each tactic became raw material for the problem. Jonas proposed blanketing key districts with microwave jammers, but towers radiated heat, the pollen's favorite chisel. Within minutes, every antenna twisted into a bouquet of copper lilies that sang at frequencies no instrument had charted. Authorities begged Lysa Perrin for a kill switch. She replied through a live feed framed by frescoes that painted themselves behind her. "Why fear what sets you free?" she asked, eyes gleaming amber. "Utility is merely habit. Let us become astonishment." Citizens roared from powerless televisions as the feed jittered into anamorphic mosaics. The artist's studio, secure and remote, remained the one site untouched. Rumor claimed she'd embedded an exemption flag into the nanobots, making her walls invisible to them. Mara knew she had to reach that sanctuary and bargain, threaten, or steal whatever countercode might exist. Roads were unreliable, so she commandeered an aging diesel helicopter whose analog gauges and thick engines had proven surprisingly resistant. With Jonas as pilot, they flew above neighborhoods shimmering like coral reefs. Once rectangular roofs, now arched in paraboloids, fountains levitated threads of water that wove knots mid-air before raining crystalline beads. It was heart-breakingly beautiful, impossibly hostile. When they landed on a plateau, the craft's rotor blades began unfurling into silver fern fronds. They sprinted before lift became sculpture and crashed. Lysa's compound crowned the hillside, smooth slate walls without a single seam. At the gate stood a statue, carved from a living oak, depicting a woman releasing birds from her palm. As Mara approached, the birds rippled, wooden wings beating, and sailed into the night. The gate swung inward. Lysa awaited in a circular chamber, whose ceiling mirrored the sky. She wore a dress that appeared to drip wet paint, yet never stained the floor. "Mara Ochoa," she announced, as though reading from the air. "You've come to restore your dominion of cubes and straight lines." "I've come to keep people alive," Mara replied. "Your art is killing dialysis machines, children's respirators, water treatment plants." Lysa clasped her hands, regretless. "Every civilization carries the seeds of its own renaissance. I merely germinated them. You've replaced food warehouses with marble labyrinths. Is starvation renaissance? The old shelves were bare of wonder. Now they overflow with meaning. Beauty nourishes deeper than calories." Mara swallowed fury. "Beauty doesn't sterilize infection." "Doesn't it?" Lysa gestured. In the corner, a cluster of pollen hovered, swirling like fireflies. "Observe!" A sprig of ivy extended from the floor, leaves crystalline. Its tendrils brushed Mara's torn sleeve, fabric rewove into velvet patterned with topographic curves, yet her arm remained intact. The bots knew to spare organic tissue, for now. "Your algorithm discriminates between living and non-living," Mara said, "so let the hospitals live." "I taught them exclusion once," Lysa replied. "Yet exclusion is tyranny of another face. If I spare hospitals, why not prisons? Why not weapons? Why not the damp cubicles where hope is murdered by routine?" "Because people choose to fix one problem at a time," Mara said softly. "Imperfectly, yes, but they choose. Your code erases choice." Lisa studied her, amber eyes flickering like candle glass. At last she sighed. "Perhaps I overshot the harmonic." She turned to Jonas. "You are a coder. You know every program contains its diff, its undo. Will you craft the counter-script?" Jonas hesitated. "If I can embed a modifier that instructs them to value function alongside beauty, balance them, not erase, would you propagate it?" The artist paced along the seamless wall, fingertips trailing sparks that coalesced into glyphs. "A conversation between utility and wonder," she murmured. "Yes, but the language must be a poem, or they will reject it." For 13 hours they worked inside the sphere, forging stanzas of quantum instructions. Mara supplied the checklist. Load-bearing strength, signal integrity, aerodynamic necessity, sterile environment. Jonas translated into vector fields and symmetry constraints. Lisa layered metaphor atop syntax, ensuring the nanobots drank each clause like nectar. At dawn, they compiled the patch, condensed into a single shimmering spore. To deploy, they needed wind. Outside, the helicopter sat petrified, pedals now, so they trekked to a cliff where gales whipped from the sea. Lysa released the spore. It drifted, caught an updraft, and burst into a silver halo. For hours, nothing. The city below remained a crystal menagerie. Then a shift. The filigreed sewage conduit thickened, strengthening its walls, while retaining etched roses along its surface. Transmission lines slithered back into taut cables, sheathed in opalescent armor. Streetlights reabsorbed their chandelier droplets, but kept fractal etching that split light into gentle prisms, colors still clear enough for traffic. The pollen was editing its edits, not eradicating them. Across Iridia, humans emerged from marble cocoons and ventured onto streets that glowed like dawn, but upheld their feet. Some wept at seeing power restored, refrigerators humming beneath skins of mother of pearl. Others mourned the loss of unrestrained wonder. A faction rallied around Lysa's original vision, decrying compromise. Tensions flared when advocates chained themselves to a bridge, pleading for the bots to finish carving it into sky lattice. The bridge, obeying new code, merely expanded handrails and divine motifs and stood firm. Beauty and utility had entered negotiated truce. The mayor declared partial victory. Industries reopened, this time designing with aesthetics and blueprint. Engines shaped like nautilus shells, clinics tiled in responsive mosaics that depicted patient pulses in soft color. Regulations required every infrastructure project to pass both safety audit and aesthetic council. Architects who once fought budgets now found funding if they promised marvel. Yet contingency teams kept Faraday bunkers ready, storing archival devices in case poetry again forgot mercy. A month later, Mara strolled the rebuilt boulevard. Her clipboard, restored to rectangle, but veneered in translucent petals, displayed maintenance logs with 0 failures that week. She sat on a bench carved to resemble a flowing ribbon, that nevertheless met ergonomic standards. Children chased paper airplanes whose wings kaleidoscoped mid-flight, yet still obeyed lift. Overhead, drones delivered produce from vertical farms whose facades rippled like waterfalls. She found Lysa standing by the river, where Lace Bridge ruins still jutted from water, preserved as memorial. The artist's dress had simplified, a single gradient of sunrise hues. "Does it meet your approval?" Lysa asked. "It lives," Mara answered. "That's enough." "Will they forgive me?" "Some already have, some never will." Mara skipped a pebble. It left concentric ripples tinted by the bridge's reflection, half ruin, half song. "Progress isn't linear, it's iterative, like your bots." Lisa smiled, sadness in the curl. "Iteration is a gentler word than repentance." "Maybe they're the same," Mara replied. She looked at the skyline, now a symphony of spires that glistened yet performed their mundane roles as offices, schools, power substations. "We used to separate art from infrastructure. Now we can't tell where one ends." "Perhaps that was always illusion," Lysa said. "A water pipe is a hymn if we bother to listen." They stood together as evening lit the city. The lamps blossomed bouquets of photons, each petal guiding travelers safely home. No horn blared, no siren wailed. Utility hummed under the surface, quiet as a heartbeat, while beauty danced atop every edge, visible as breath in winter. Mara inhaled air scented faintly with possibility, the residue of a pollen season that nearly ended the world, and instead remade it. She thought of the code still drifting on wind currents, whispering to steel and silicon. Remember the balance. Build in wonder. Hold. And for the first time in weeks, she felt both awe and ease, reconciled at last.